If some part of you wants a more fulfilled life, you have a choice. Ignore it and live with that pain, or take a risk and chase after it and live in the uncertainty. My life changed drastically 3 times in the past 5 years, from academia to full-time work to entrepreneurship. And I've experienced both, the pain of ignoring and the uncertainty of chasing. So if you have a voice in the back of your head telling you that there's more to life, then this is for you. So I had these 3 big split roads, and they all taught me different things at different stages of my life. When I was finishing my bachelor's degree, I had the choice of further study or getting my foot in the door at a company. Then I had the choice of continuing down like a successful career in full-time work or chasing entrepreneurship as a side hustle. And now as an entrepreneur, I have the choice always to quit or to keep going. The biggest commonality between these 3 things was that there was always a lot of uncertainty and there was always a lot of pain. And I was making a decision between the 2. The first decision, when I was deciding to either study more or start my career, I really had to learn to evaluate the upside of risk appropriately. When I had the successful career and I had the choice of going backwards to start an entrepreneurship, I really had to reframe uncertainty as an opportunity to get something more out of life. And finally, committing to full-time entrepreneurship, it's taught me that the faster you face uncertainty, the better. Let's start from the beginning. This first decision right after I'd graduated from my bachelor's, I had already lined up a year of honors study with a lab. I'd already done like a little internship with them. I had this relationship. And at the last minute, when I had only a couple of days left to sign the deal for this year of extra study, I got a call back from a company that I'd interviewed for, and they'd offered me a short-term position, like 3 months as like an intern, like really just a foot in the door, no guarantees. And this offer just came at a really awkward time where I had this guaranteed year of study that I'd almost committed to. And now I had this offer on the table which seemed enticing and had less certainty and was a bit scary. In a very short period of time, I had to evaluate which of these 2 decisions is going to be the best for me. And it was honestly a lot of just tackling the uncertainty of not knowing what the outcome was going to be. When I think about it, this was really the first time in my life where I was making a decision about what my life was going to look like, and I was fully in control of the inputs and the outcomes. You know, up until this point, it had been school and uni, things had been relatively laid out. And so everything felt new, it felt difficult. There was a lot of uncertainty. I didn't know what the right decision was going to be, and I was really scared of making the wrong one. So I was at this split road and I had a deadline, and thankfully I got some really good advice to properly evaluate the upside of the risk. I think naturally we're all drawn to thinking about the worst case scenarios and letting that play on our minds, and that really just builds up the uncertainty that you have in your head, and it makes decisions a lot harder to make. But when you can kind of logically step through, okay, what would happen? What would I do in this situation? You know, I go for the job and then I don't have a job in 3 months' time. What am I going to do? I'm probably going to be able to find some other work, something that's still progressing me towards the career that I want. Doing this little exercise allows you to appropriately weight the upside and downsides of the risk, which is really going to help you make the best decision for yourself when you're faced with a lot of uncertainty. This little exercise was particularly helpful for this decision because I realized that the extra year of study, the best case scenario was that I was just able to get an opportunity like the one that I had right now. Maybe it would have been slightly better, more guaranteed long term, but ultimately I realized that I was going to end up in a very similar position to where I am now. There would just be less uncertainty. And so that made it very clear that this slightly higher risk opportunity that was just filled with uncertainty was really what I wanted in the long term. It was just scary right now to make that decision. And realistically, if I hadn't just faced that uncertainty and made the decision to take the short-term job, I really would have just had a year of pain of doing extra study and learning things that I thought I needed to get this opportunity. I'm really glad that I had this experience early on in my career because it gave me the confidence that I can take the slightly riskier decision, I can face the uncertainty, and that I would be okay. Things would play out and I would make the best of the situation. And I think having that confidence is really important, and you only really get it through the experience of facing the uncertainty, of taking the risk. And there was another side to it here where, you know, I had partly agreed to do this year of study. I felt like I had some obligation. Even though I hadn't signed the paperwork, you know, I had met with these people, I had done a couple weeks of work with them, I had built relationships. And now I felt like I was kind of turning my back on them at the last moment. And I think a lot of us feel like we have these obligations to other people to fulfill their desires and live out what they want for us. And it was a really freeing decision. And honestly, I think it was the least selfish thing I could have done, is to make the best decision for myself. Because if I had just done the honors out of obligation, that would have been selfish to them and to myself. I would have been robbing both of us of the genuine experience that it was supposed to be. And so I think honoring what you want and making the decision that's best for yourself is really the least selfish thing you can do. So we can fast forward a little bit. I took the short-term opportunity, a 3-month contract, and I was faced with another mini decision 3 months later when that contract ended. I was offered an extension of the exact same position with the similar duties, or I was given the opportunity to apply internally for a full-time role. So more guarantee, kind of better position, a little leg up. Again, I found myself at this split road with another deadline and an option that had a higher payout, a slightly higher risk and a lot more uncertainty, or I could stick with what I knew, what I had, and it was guaranteed. And basically I just said, well, it worked for me then, let's do the same thing again now. And I took the slightly higher risk option, I backed myself, I faced the uncertainty, and I was able to land myself a full-time position. So after what felt like a pretty crazy 4 or 5 month period, I had crossed 2 big bridges and made 2 big decisions towards uncertainty and taken on a lot of risk. And now I feel like I'd landed, I'd settled, I had the full-time job, I had the security, and I was just plodding away. So I studied biochemistry at university, and this was a job where I was a biochemist doing quality control checking, and I was doing the exact experiments that I had learned in university in my job, which was a very rewarding experience to actually feel like it was worth it and that I had paid all this money and got these skills for a reason. And for a while, the certainty and the comfort was really nice. I kind of knew what my place was. I started to see what my future could look like, and that was exciting and that was nice for a little while. But as time went on and I started progressing in this career, and I got a little promotion and I could kind of see the path that was being laid for me, I realized that I now knew exactly what the next 40 years of my life could look like, because I could see the people that were ahead of me. I could see what they were working on, the kind of hours that they had to do, what their life looked like, the commitments that they had. I had complete certainty on what my life could look like if I just continued down this path. But it was scary because I had this voice in my head telling me that there had to be more. The certainty of this path and where it was leading me, I knew it wasn't going to fulfill me. And it was scary that that's exactly where I was heading. And really that fear started to become pain. The longer that I sat knowing that this path wasn't going to fulfill me and that it's not really where I wanted to be long term, the pain just started slowly increasing and building. Now at the same time, I had started a little side hustle. I had began my journey in entrepreneurship and started a business. And that was the spark. That was the thing that was really fulfilling me, that I felt like I could chase and that would allow me to really grow as much as I wanted to. But again, the side hustle, the entrepreneurship route was filled with uncertainty. In the job, I had comfort, I had money, I had guarantees, but I also knew that it wasn't what I wanted. And over here, in the side hustle, I had the fulfillment that I think I was looking for, but none of the guarantees, none of the status, none of the money, none of the proof. This was a really big pivot point for me where I really had to reframe the uncertainty as an opportunity to get what I wanted from life. There's no such thing as a guaranteed good thing if it's not taking you where you want to go. It's really hard to break that frame mentally when it's been giving you all these things which other people see as really good or that you've gotten value out of in the past. I mean, there was a good 2 years there where I sat letting the pain build up, knowing that this wasn't what I wanted long term. Unable to face the uncertainty, unable to make the risky decision that was going to potentially get me what I wanted from life. Like 2 years is a long time to sit knowing that you don't want these outcomes, but unable to make the decision of what's really best for you in the long term. But it's really difficult, and I get that you fall into this trap of living out other people's dreams for your life. It's so easy when you have all of these things that you can put forward as, oh, but I have this salary, oh, but I'm making this progress and it lets me live this lifestyle, buy this car. It's so easy to fall into that trap of just living out the dreams of other people. And probably in the short term, it's easier to just push down the pain. And you can push down the pain for a while, but all you're really doing is putting off a difficult decision and making it more difficult by investing more time and attention into the path that you know you don't want. Basically, just because of sunk cost fallacy, you'll have more time and more investment in this particular path. And so breaking it, taking a step backwards, chasing something else that you think is going to be more fulfilling, but might be a backward step in some domains of life, is just going to be more and more difficult. Now, in that situation, the pain will also be probably increasing over time. And I think that's the position most people find themselves in, is that the pain gets to a point where something has to change. But ultimately, you can save yourself a lot of that pain if you just face the uncertainty head on as early as possible. In a lot of ways, I'm grateful that it was only 2.5 years that I sat in that discomfort before I was able to face the uncertainty and make this decision. But that's still 2 years of pain. That's still a long time to be sitting not facing the uncertainty. And there's a lot of rationalizing that you do, a lot of conversations that you have with yourself that, oh, I'll face this, I'll make the decision when the side hustle is replacing the income that I have now, or when I get to this certain level of promotion within the job. But all you're really doing is staying somewhere where you're guaranteed to not get what you want, instead of having the chance, the opportunity to get what you want. And all that's standing in the way is facing the uncertainty. So I finally made the decision. I quit my job and I committed full-time to my business and being an entrepreneur. And I thought, great, look at me. I've been able to face all of this uncertainty and make all of these decisions, and here I am. But it was a whole nother kettle of fish. Full-time entrepreneurship is just generalized uncertainty all the time, because you're always a beginner, you're always having to learn new skills, and you never really know exactly what you're doing or what you're going to get out of it. And so, as we know, uncertainty likes to delay decision making and freeze you in place. But in entrepreneurship, when your output is directly tied to your actions, what you put in, you can't be frozen by uncertainty, because then it means nothing is happening, there's no progress, you're not moving forward. And that's a scary place to be stuck in place, to be frozen by this uncertainty. And so what I realized is that you need to face the uncertainty as quickly as possible. A lot of the time we get caught up in trying to make the best decision, trying to gather all the information, do all the research, so that we only have to make this decision once and we do it right and we do it the best way. What that really ends up doing is sucking up all of your time and freezing you in position, not just making a decision and taking action. It's really a lot quicker just to make a good decision that's maybe slightly off course, figure out what was wrong, correct course, and make another decision. That will get you to the end goal faster than trying to align and make the perfect decision and then just move forward that way. This idea of making quicker decisions, even if they're slightly off course, and then correcting, also plays into the fact that fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. Making faster decisions that are maybe slightly off course and then correcting, being the better way to go about getting towards your end goal, really plays into the fact that uncertainty just builds more fear. And fear can be a mile wide and an inch deep. And the longer that you sit there in the uncertainty, letting the fear build, the wider that this wall of fear grows and the harder that it is to face. And really what taking quick action does is it proves that it's only an inch deep. And all you really need to do is take the first step towards it, just poke your finger through, and you realize that you go straight through it. And so by facing the uncertainty faster, not only do you make more progress towards where you want to go, but you actually have to deal with less fear, because you're not letting it build up in your head. You're not letting this wall get wider and wider. Entrepreneurship is the perfect vessel for practicing and developing this skill of facing the uncertainty, of making decisions, taking action towards the fear. It's applicable to every single domain of life. Whatever you're striving for, whatever you want to achieve, there's going to be this same level of uncertainty, these decisions that you have to make. And so really all you want to do is build up that trust and that confidence that you have with yourself, that I can make these decisions, I can take on this risk, and I'm going to be okay. So if you've been pondering a decision, you're letting the uncertainty build up, or you have that nagging voice in the back of your head telling you that you should be striving for more, don't live in that pain. Take the action now towards the uncertainty and take on that risk. Start building that trust with yourself that you can make these decisions and you're going to be okay. At the very least, follow along, and I'm going to keep reminding you.